but I don't know what the input is. Who are these kids that are showing up? I mean, are they ready to learn? Here in Anchorage, you got 40% of the kids that show up on the first day of kindergarten that aren't ready to learn. So this is the challenge, and this is what I spoke about last February at our last meeting, was the need to take a look at inputs. I mean, if you want to complain about the 77% graduation rate at the Anchorage School District, the 4-year graduation rate, don't tell me about 77%. Tell me about the 23%. So, you know, if you've got 18.5% of the students in third grade that aren't reading at grade level, what is going on? Who are those students? I mean, this is the primary problem with education, is that everybody wants to point to the outcomes, but nobody wants to take the time to say, who and what kind of condition are these students showing up for school? Are they ready to learn? Where are they coming from? Are they English as second language? Are they coming from dysfunctional homes? Yes, government can't solve all the problems, but this data doesn't mean anything to me unless I know what the inputs are. And that's why I asked the question about pre-K. So, Mr. Morse, I'm very excited to see the dive down into those students that went through the pilot pre-K program and where they are, because I think that will show us a lot. But again, this is, from the business community standpoint, this is our biggest concern, is all we hear about outputs. Third grade reading scores are low. Eighth grade math scores are low. Graduation rates are low. But nobody wants to talk about inputs. What are we doing on the front end? So I'll just leave it at that.
And thank you, Mr. Halcrow. And I'd like to add a little bit to that, and I happen to agree with you. But some of the things you also did not indicate are, you know, what are we doing on the input? So if we talk about reading, are our teachers are they reading teachers, experts at teaching reading, so that our kids, you know, and what I don't know is, out of that percentage of kids that are not proficient, where did they come from? And more importantly, have they been through our school system? Did we have a teacher in first grade that just didn't get it? And I'm not here to diss on teachers, but I'm here to say that we don't know what those answers are. And to piggyback on Mr. Halcrow, how can we make those changes if we don't know those answers? Mr. Neese.
And just clarifier. So does the department track intervention that districts do with the children so that we could get this input information? If we identify a kid that's not proficient in third grade, does the school district have to report to the Department of Education, here's what we've tried, here's where we've sent the kid off to Sylvan or whatever we've tried to do with this child, and then you can track if that is actually intervening. I mean, what you want to do is put the money where it's going to service the kid the best by trying to get them up to proficient. If proficient is the standard and you want everybody to be proficient, and I keep hearing 90%, then you have to take whatever monies you have and spend it on intervention. Do the districts have to report to the state of Alaska's Department of Education what they're doing to intervene with children that test as not proficient? Is there anything in the books that says they have to do that?
Through the chair, Member Neese, that activity happens at the district level, not at the state level.
So there's nothing that they have to report back to you saying, here's our kid, he's reading at second grade level, he's a fourth grader, here's where we sent him off for his additional resources, here's how much he gained this year, and so that was money well spent. So is it because the district doesn't relinquish the information to you, or is it because you don't require them to relinquish the information to you?
Well, I would answer in two parts. Well, in three parts. I don't think districts would avoid relinquishing the data to us, but there is no requirement to provide the data, and the data is most useful at the local level where they can turn around and do something with it immediately. And so that's why it is done at the local level.
But wouldn't it be more useful for the State Department of Education to take care of those 1,000 children that disappear off the radar in a given year, to know that they didn't move, to know that they moved from one section of the state to the other, and now they're struggling really badly because that state's performing at a different level than the one they just came from, or the other way around? Wouldn't that help you as a department make a better state policy on what to do with the remediation of kids that are not proficient?
Through the chair, Member Neese, the fear I would have is the lag time of getting that information and us doing something about it. So it may be valuable if we had a division of folks that could do the analysis and then turn it around really quickly, but we don't have that. So when you get that kind of information, what you want to do is make sure you can act on it. And with children, you need to act on it more quickly than what the system would allow for us to do something with at this level. So the second thing that I think is important in this is making sure districts have that information they've collected. They put it in the student's CUME folder, those kinds of things. So when kids do transfer between districts, that information goes from one district to the next. And so at a statewide policy, one of the pieces that we think is important and that we do follow up on and have as a requirement is what goes into a cumulative folder for a student in a file and when that must be transferred when a student transfers from one district to the other, because that is a concern, but that's a state policy that addresses that to make sure districts are getting information when students are moving. Any other involvement from the department actually, I think, would not be very responsive in a manner that provides instructional need for those students.
I'm trying to think how it wouldn't be helpful.
Let me ask another quick question. In this data here that we have in proficiency, are IEP or special needs included, or are they included elsewhere?
Through the chair, they are included, and you can't see them broken out separately in those first pages, but then when in the latter pages where it breaks them down by all the subgroups, it's actually toward the first are ethnic or race groups, but toward the bottom of each of those grade levels, it breaks out students who are disabled that had accommodations, and then non-disabled students.
Thank you. Representative Wilson.
Can you tell us, when did districts get these scores? So you have the 2014 scores here. When did the districts get these scores?
Through the chair, Member Wilson, the districts with these particular scores got the individual student scores and then their school reports that show their school, and then at the district level, they got them sometime in May. I think by the third week in May they get them, maybe even the second week, but it's at least by the third week.
And will there be the same turnaround with these new tests?
Through the chair, Member Wilson, yes, we hope it's quicker. For those that are able to do it electronically, it'll be quicker. This next year, of course, the year that you set the cut scores is a little bit longer because you have to set the cut scores. The state board has to have meetings to set those cut scores, et cetera. But then in all the subsequent years, it should be faster than what it has been in the past as we move to more pieces of the test being done much more quickly. Right. In terms of the scoring aspects afterwards.
And can you tell me why the state board is the one making the cut scores versus somebody, and nothing against the state board, so that's not my, but it just seems like, they would not have the specialized training to be able to come up with something as important as the cut score is.
Well, through the chair, Member Wilson, what they're doing is actually really they adopt them into regulation. And so they're the only body that has the authority to adopt those into regulation. They do that because it's a requirement in statute. They set those standards. However, they depend on the department to gather experts who, in fact, do have expertise in looking at the standards and looking at the assessment and doing that. So what I would say the state board is doing when they're setting the cut scores is they're holding the accountable the department for having brought